is Brian, and I work as a gravedigger in an old cemetery in Charleston. When I took this job, I thought it would be just another way to make a living, something quiet, uneventful. I'd always heard that the dead can't hurt you, that the real danger lies among the living. But what I experienced a few months ago showed me that there are things far beyond our understanding. And the worst part, I wasn't the only one who felt it. I haven't been in this line of work for long, yet I've already seen things that if someone had told me, I wouldn't have believed. I know, many will say it's all in my head, hallucinations from spending too much time among graves and silence. But I was there, and what I'm about to share still haunts me every night. It was a Wednesday afternoon, with a heavy sky and damp air that seeped into your bones. A coffin arrived at the cemetery, and from the first moment, it gave me a strange, unsettling feeling. I couldn't explain why, but something felt off. It wasn't what I saw, but what I sensed. It was as if the man's death hadn't been peaceful. They told me the deceased was named Mr. Lawrence, a man in his 50s, found dead in his home after several days. The cause, according to the paperwork, was a sudden heart attack. But there was something odd about the whole situation. The coffin was already sealed when they brought it, and during the wake, only a handful of people showed up. 3 family members, lost in thought, and an old man in a dark suit whom no one seemed to know. No one cried, no one spoke. Just a silence heavier than any scream. When it came time for the burial, I did what I always do. I dug the grave in the northern section of the cemetery, where the trees block most of the sunlight. As my shovel broke through the damp earth, I felt like something was watching me. I looked up several times, but no one was there. The cemetery was nearly deserted, yet that feeling wouldn't leave me. If you love horror stories, subscribe and turn on the bell, because what I'm about to tell you is just the beginning. What I lived through left a mark on me, and even now, there are nights when I feel I'm not alone. Just as I finished digging and the funeral workers lowered the coffin, a strange wind hit me. It wasn't the usual afternoon breeze. It was dry, heavy, carrying a stench like rotting flesh. I picked up my cap from the ground, and then I saw him. A few yards from the grave, standing among the tombstones, was that same man in the dark suit. Tall, thin, staring at me without blinking. Frozen, I tried to speak to him, but a co-worker called me. I turned for a second, and when I looked back, he was gone. I couldn't get that man's image out of my mind. His face, though blurred by distance, had something deeply disturbing. It wasn't just his sudden appearance, but the way he looked at me, as if he knew something I hadn't yet grasped. I tried to convince myself he was just a visitor, someone who left unnoticed. But deep down, that didn't bring me peace. I finished the job as usual, smoothing the soil over Mr. Lawrence's grave and placing the plaque with his name. Yet as I walked away, the weight in my chest remained. That night, while putting away my tools and getting ready to return to the small house I have on the cemetery grounds, I noticed the air was colder than usual. A cold that didn't feel natural, like it came from beneath the ground. I turned on the radio as soon as I stepped inside, like I always did to keep the silence at bay. I poured myself some coffee and sat down, trying to unwind. The host was talking about local news, the kind that doesn't matter when your mind is elsewhere. And though my body was drained, my thoughts kept circling what I had seen. When I finally managed to fall asleep, something woke me hours later. It wasn't a loud noise or a scream. It was a feeling like someone was there, inside the house, watching me in the dark. I lay still, eyes wide open, feeling my heart pounding in my chest. There was no sound, just the wind slipping through the cracks and some distant cat meowing. But then I heard it. A soft, dry noise. Footsteps on the dirt just outside. I sat up abruptly and grabbed my flashlight. I opened the door cautiously, and the freezing air hit my face. The sky was overcast, no moon in sight, and the nearest streetlight flickered, as if it too was afraid. I looked around. Nothing. Just the cemetery and its eternal stillness. I figured it could have been some animal, maybe a stray dog looking for shelter. I was about to close the door when something made me stop. There, in the distance, among the oldest graves, I saw a figure, standing still, motionless, and though it was far, the silhouette seemed familiar. I raised the flashlight, trembling, and confirmed it. It was him, the same man I had buried that very afternoon, wearing the same clothes, that dark shirt and pants barely visible in the dim light. But the worst part, what chilled me to the core, were his eyes, empty, lifeless, fixed on me. For a few moments, time seemed to freeze. I couldn't move, speak, or even think. He was there, watching me, as if he'd never left. And then he took a step, just one, barely noticeable, but enough to jolt me into action. My arm trembled, the flashlight slipped from my hand, and when I bent down to pick it up, just a second, and when I looked again, he was gone. I tried to convince myself that it was just exhaustion playing tricks on me, that maybe in the darkness I'd mistaken a shadow, or that my mind, worn from long days among graves, was fooling me. But something inside me knew better. What I had seen wasn't a dream or a trick. That man, Mr. Lawrence, had been there, standing in front of me, after being buried. That night, I couldn't close my eyes. I lay in bed, covers pulled to my chin, flashlight by my side, as if it could protect me from something I couldn't understand. The silence grew heavier with each passing minute, and though I tried listening to the radio, I felt that any sound might be worse than the complete absence of noise. Around 3 in the morning, another chill woke me. This time, it wasn't just the sense of being watched. It was something stronger, deeper. I snapped my eyes open and froze. The darkness in the room felt thicker, like it could be cut with a knife. There was no wind, no cats, nothing except a presence. I don't know how to explain it, but I knew I wasn't alone. That something or someone was in that room with me. I tried to move, but my muscles wouldn't obey. It felt like an invisible force was pressing me into the mattress. My chest tightened, and each breath became harder. Then, the door creaked. Just a faint moan from the hinges, but enough to send my heart racing. I wanted to scream, but only a choked gasp escaped my throat. Beside me, I felt the mattress sink, as if someone sat down slowly. I couldn't see anything, but the weight was there, and with it, a cold that pierced to my bones. A voice, barely a whisper, broke the silence. "Brian." It was rough, like it came from beneath the earth. "You have to come." I squeezed my eyes shut, hoping it would end, that I'd wake up from a bad dream. But when I opened them again, the weight was gone. I turned on the flashlight with trembling hands and scanned the room. No one was there. Yet on the floor, right next to the bed, there was a footprint, a dark, muddy mark. I jumped up, heart pounding. That mark wasn't imagined. Someone had been there, someone who should no longer walk among the living. And the worst part was feeling like this was just the beginning. After that night, I realized this wasn't just a scare. Whatever was following me, it went beyond the cemetery, beyond my house. It was like my shadow was no longer the only thing walking with me. It was hard to accept that someone I had buried was now part of my daily life, but everywhere I went reminded me. At dawn, exhausted, I tried to stick to my routine. I went to work, though I could barely hold the shovel. Everything in the cemetery seemed darker, heavier. Every creak of the earth, every whisper of the wind made me turn my head. I knew he was near, but what terrified me most was not knowing when I'd see him again. That same afternoon, I decided to take the bus to the market. I needed to get away from that place for a while, even if it was just among the noise of the city. I sat, as always, at the back of the bus, resting my head against the window, trying to relax. But rest never came. After a few minutes, a familiar sensation crawled down my spine. A shiver, like invisible eyes, were piercing the back of my neck. I opened my eyes and looked at the reflection in the glass. And there he was, a few rows ahead, sitting sideways, watching me with those empty eyes. Mr. Lawrence, the same face, the same clothes. My throat tightened. My fingers gripped the seat. I looked around, seeking help, but no one seemed to notice anything. The other passengers sat calmly, oblivious to my terror. I turned quickly to look straight at him. The seat was empty. No one was there. My breath came in gasps, my heart pounding like a drum. I glanced at the reflection again, hoping he'd be gone. And he was. I reached the market like a ghost, my head spinning. I went straight to the grain section, trying to focus, to think about anything else. I grabbed a bag of rice, and as I read the price, something icy ran through me. Not on the outside, but deep inside, like someone had touched my soul. I looked up, and at the end of the aisle, standing still, was him, firm, unmoving, staring. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't move. In a blink, he vanished. The bag slipped from my hands, and I rushed toward the checkout. I paid without looking at anyone, stepped out onto the street, but the feeling of being followed clung to me. I looked around, trying to spot him, but saw only ordinary people, cars, lights. Tap the yellow lamp icon and stay with us so we can uncover disturbing mysteries together. The worst was yet to come. That same night he would return, but not just to watch me. That night when I got home, I didn't just close the door as usual. I barricaded it. I jammed a piece of wood behind it, as if that could stop something that no longer belonged to this world. I shut the windows, pulled down the curtains, turned off every light except the one in my room. I needed to feel like I had some control, even if it was just an illusion. My body couldn't take any more, but my mind wouldn't let me rest. I lay down, flashlight by my side, and my mother's crucifix in hand. The silence was so heavy that even the ticking of the clock felt deafening. I felt like something would happen at any moment, and that waiting was worse than any scream. Sleep took me, but not for long. A pain in my chest woke me. Not just discomfort, it was like something was crushing me, as if an invisible weight had settled on top of me. I tried to move, but I couldn't. Every muscle was stiff, and my breath came short and ragged. I opened my eyes and saw the ceiling, dark, vast. I couldn't see beyond it, but I knew I wasn't alone. The air was freezing, thick, and then I felt it. Hands. I don't know if they were real or not, holding my arms, my legs. I couldn't move. I wanted to scream, but only a moan escaped my throat. The mattress sank just like the night before, but this time not slowly. It was sudden, as if someone had thrown themselves onto the bed right beside me. And there, in the silence, once more, the voice. "Brian, it's time." It was clearer this time, closer. It didn't come from far away. It was right here by my ear. It was like it spoke from inside my head. I shut my eyes tight, tears running down my temples. I thought it would all end there, that it was the last thing I would ever see. But suddenly, a loud crash shook the house. Something, I don't know what, fell with force. The streetlight flickered, and in that instant, the presence vanished. I could move, breathe. I sat up in bed, drenched in sweat, my heart about to burst. I looked around, searching for something, anything, and then I saw it. A mark, a footprint of fresh earth right next to the bed. It wasn't a hallucination, it wasn't just fear. Someone or something had been here. I didn't sleep again, not that night, not the ones after. I knew now he wasn't just watching me. I knew he had crossed the door, and I understood that soon. He would want something more. After that night, I realized my house was no longer mine. Every corner was tainted by that presence. It didn't matter how many doors I locked, how many lights I turned on, or how many prayers I whispered. Mr. Lawrence, or whatever was left of him, was still there. I never slept the same again. Every sound, every shadow was a threat. At work, my body moved on its own, but my mind never stopped searching for answers. What did he want from me? Why me? What was I supposed to do? The visions became part of my daily life. I saw him standing across the street when I walked, reflected in the grimy kitchen windows, even in the water's reflection in the sink. Always still, always watching. He didn't speak, didn't move. He just was as if waiting for something. One night, as I sat at the table, no appetite, I heard it clearly for the first time. My name, dragged by the wind slipping through the window. "Brian, come back." I couldn't take it anymore. I jumped up, knocked the chair over, and ran toward the cemetery. I knew I'd find the answer there. Something inside me pushed me to return, to face whatever had begun with that burial. The sky was covered, clouds so heavy it felt like the air could break. I walked among the graves, flashlight in hand, trembling but unstoppable. I went straight to Mr. Lawrence's grave, without thinking, without hesitation. When I arrived, I lost my breath. The earth had been disturbed, not much, but enough to notice. It was like someone or something had tried to get out or in. I felt a chill run down my spine, and my legs gave way. Then behind me, the sound. It wasn't the wind, not distant footsteps. It was clear, heavy. Someone was approaching, dragging their feet over the leaf-covered ground. I turned, and there he was. Him. The same pale face, hollow eyes, dust-covered clothes. This time he didn't vanish. He stayed firm, just a few feet away, among the tombstones. I couldn't speak, couldn't move. My body was trapped in fear. Mr. Lawrence slowly raised his hand and with a bony finger pointed to his own grave. He said nothing more, just looked at me, as if that look alone was enough to say it all. And I understood. Something was wrong with that burial, something I had to uncover. Even though fear consumed me, I knew I couldn't run anymore. My hand trembled as I grabbed the shovel. I had to know what was down there, what he wanted me to see. My hands shook, but the shovel was already in the earth. Each scoop felt heavier, not from the effort, but from the dread eating me alive. The air was thick, and though it didn't rain, the sky seemed ready to collapse. Mr. Lawrence's figure stood there, unmoving, watching me dig up his grave. I don't know how many minutes passed, maybe hours, or just moments, but each strike of the shovel pounded in my chest. I felt like I wasn't just digging the ground, but something deeper, as if I were unearthing a secret that should have stayed buried. And then the sound changed. A dull thud. The shovel had hit something hard. The coffin. My breath grew ragged. I knelt, hands dirty, clearing the lid. Sweat poured from my forehead, but it was ice cold. When I finally loosened the edges, my fingers slipped over the damp wood. With all the courage I had left, I opened the lid, and what I saw knocked me backward. The coffin was empty. There was no body, no remains, nothing. The space where Mr. Lawrence should have been was bare, as if it had never held anything. My mind clouded. I wanted to scream, but no sound came. Everything spun, the ground pulling me under. I had buried him myself. I had seen him, so how could this be? What had been inside when the coffin was sealed? Where was the body? I dragged myself backward, eyes fixed on the empty space. Tears burned as they mixed with the dirt. I turned to find him, to look at him, but he was gone. For the first time in weeks, the cemetery was silent. No wind, no shadows, just me, the open grave, and the echo of the impossible ringing in my mind. I stayed there, too drained to move, trying to grasp what had just happened. Maybe I should have never dug. Maybe there are things we're not meant to know. But one thing was certain. Mr. Lawrence wasn't resting there. And what tormented me most was the thought that maybe, just maybe, he had never been dead. I returned home with my mind shattered. I didn't know if I wanted answers or if it was better to live with the doubt, but the image of that empty coffin gave me no peace. I didn't sleep that night, just sat at the edge of the bed, the light on, staring at the mark of earth still on the floor. At dawn, I decided to do something I had never done in all my months at the cemetery. I went to the caretaker's office, where the burial records were kept. I needed to see the details of Mr. Lawrence, to confirm he had existed, that what I'd lived through made sense. I searched for his name among folders, yellowed papers, endless lists, but he wasn't there. No trace of him. No name, no burial date, nothing. It was as if he had never arrived at the cemetery. Sweat ran down my back and my hands shook. Had I been part of something bigger? A mistake? A trap? Or was it something darker? I decided to visit one of the old gravediggers, Mr. Martin, who lived in a small house on the edge of North Haven. He had worked over 30 years in the cemetery before retiring. He always said there were things better left untold, but now I needed to know. When I told him what had happened, he didn't seem surprised. He looked at me with those aged eyes, full of stories no one wants to hear, and said, "You're not the first, Brian. Many years ago, something like this happened. A man was buried alive. They say his heart was still beating when they lowered him into the ground, but no one wanted to listen. The family paid to have the coffin sealed, to keep it quiet." He paused, as if the weight of the memory pained him. He wore a dark suit, old-fashioned like in the old days. I felt the air leave my lungs. It was him. It had to be him. "And what happened to that body?" I asked, my voice breaking. Mr. Martin lowered his gaze. "They never found him. The grave was disturbed days later, and the coffin was empty, as if he had gotten up on his own." I stood without a word, my head spinning. If what Mr. Martin said was true, then Mr. Lawrence, if that was even his name, was not just a restless dead man. He was a soul trapped by injustice, by an end that wasn't his to face. And now, somehow, he had chosen me to see his truth. I didn't know if what I was about to do was right, but I couldn't live like this anymore. I felt each day slipping further from reality, the world I knew crumbling with every appearance, every whisper, every hollow stare. I couldn't carry that weight on my shoulders, that shadow following me step by step. I decided to seek out Father Stephen, a priest I had known when I was younger in Brookfield. He wasn't an ordinary man. He had a reputation for helping in cases most preferred to ignore, where the spiritual brushed against the unexplainable. I found him in a small parish far from the city noise. I told him everything, from the first day to the empty coffin. He listened without interrupting, without judging. When I finished, he nodded slowly and said, "Brian, there are souls that don't seek revenge, but justice. They don't always want to cause harm. Sometimes they just need to be seen, to be heard." I asked him to come with me to the cemetery. I needed to close that chapter, to put an end to a story that was consuming me. He agreed without hesitation. That night we returned to where it all began. The moon was hidden behind clouds, and the wind whistled through the crosses, as if it knew what we were about to do. Father Stephen knelt by the open grave and began to pray. I, shovel in hand, watched, hoping something would change, that the air would lighten. With every word I felt the pressure in my chest ease, the cold pull back. But still, the unease didn't fully leave. The priest raised his voice, his prayer growing stronger, more commanding. He named the forgotten, those who departed without farewell, those who never found peace. Then the wind stopped. The silence was so complete that even my heartbeat sounded like a drum in my ears. "It's done," the priest said, standing. "He didn't want to harm you, Brian. He just wanted someone to know, someone to see what was done to him." I didn't know what to say. I looked at the grave, still open, and felt a different emptiness, not one of fear, but of something that had gone. I never saw Mr. Lawrence after that, not in my house, not in the cemetery, not in reflections. But something inside me knew that even if his presence no longer followed me, the memory would never leave. Since that night, everything changed. I no longer had those visions or heard voices in the dark. The air in my house was no longer so heavy, and the cemetery, though still a somber place, seemed to have regained its usual silence. But I was no longer the same. Every time I pass by the northern section, where Mr. Lawrence's grave used to be, I can't help but glance sideways. The earth was sealed, the name erased, as if he had never existed. But to me, his presence is still there, hidden among the shadows of the headstones, in the whisper of the wind, slipping between the crosses. I've learned there are things that have no explanation, that the world is full of stories never told, of souls wandering, waiting to be heard. Not everything that dies leaves. Not everything we bury stays underground. Sometimes the past returns, not to destroy us, but to remind us that forgetting can be crueler than death. Today, when night falls and the wind blows strong, I sit on my doorstep and close my eyes. I listen to the sounds of the cemetery, the life that lingers there, quiet, peaceful. And sometimes, when everything is too still, I feel that someone still watches me. Maybe it's just my mind playing tricks on me. Or maybe, just maybe, there are eyes that never leave us. Mr. Lawrence's story ended that night, but the mark he left on me remains fresh. I never dug a grave with the same calm again. Never walked among the tombs without feeling that something or someone walks beside me. Because even though the terror has ceased, the memory remains. And the deepest fear isn't seeing the dead. It's knowing that sometimes they see us too. And you, are you sure no one is watching you right now?